And joining me now for a look at the International Joint Commission's recommendations and the progress is Canadian IJC Section Chair Gordon Walker. Mr. Walker, thanks so much for joining us. My first question to you would be, what again are some of the recommendations the IJC has, and what kind of movement have you seen on those recommendations in terms of algal blooms?
Well, it's been very difficult to measure the movement, Christy. I think we have to accept the fact that the public are just getting to really understand that the problem is a problem, and the situation involving the Toledo and Point Pelee issue, or Pelee Island issues of last August. They have brought it to a head, and people now appreciate, I think, that there's a problem, and they're now beginning to look at how things can be addressed. I don't know that we're seeing an awful lot of progress, but then again, that is why we have really come to this situation where, as it turns out, this very day and tomorrow we'll be holding meetings in Leamington area in Ontario and in the Maumee Bay area near Toledo to discuss with the public what the situation is and what the progress has been. Now, in terms of the recommendations, as you know, the IJC has been involved in this issue for some time, and back in February of this year, of 2014, we published our report on the Lake Erie priorities, and we came to a very distinct conclusion that a number of things had to be done by various organizations and the public to ultimately solve this problem. It's not just a question of testing, it's a question of ultimately getting to the solution and finding a way around the problem by eliminating the sources of the phosphorus loading that create all the difficulties with the algae.
You point out that the IJC has been working on this now for a number of years, but that public reaction is only starting to catch up since many people were so impacted this summer in the situation that happened with Toledo. Obviously, the IJC can't legislate any kind of policy here, but what kind of movement would you expect to see, and do you believe that there is enough public pressure to have political will to perhaps change some of the parameters here?
Well, first of all, we do advise governments, and so the two governments and the state and provincial governments, we bring to their attention problems that need to be dealt with and resolved. And this issue really started with the huge algae bloom that formed in the western basin of Lake Erie in 2011. And it was something like 3,000 square miles, or 5,000 square kilometers in size, a huge matting that was very, very difficult. As a matter of fact, I even have a picture here that I think might display it somewhat, and that is the face page of our report we published as a result of that bloom in 2011. We published this report, of course, just earlier this year. Now, it was a big problem a few years ago in 2011, and it probably got some attention. It caused a lot of attention among some very local folks, but not enough. When finally it was brought to the attention by the events off Toledo and off Pelee Island this past summer, that has really caught the public's attention. Now, that being said, what is the progress, I think, is what you're trying to say, and we are saying to you that we don't see yet enough progress. It just at the moment seems to be sinking in with the political people, and of course there's been an election in between, so it's somewhat interfered with it in the United States, but nevertheless it is sinking in enough that people are saying, listen, we've got to get on with the job and do something. That's been perhaps the biggest movement that's happened here. People have come to the appreciation that something has to be done, whether it's the body politic or whether it's the political people themselves. The question will be now, is there enough political will in order to do what's necessary to stop this sourcing of the problem?
And as you illustrate so well, this is an international issue. This does not just affect the United States, but Canada as well. IJC Canadian Section Chair Gordon Walker, thanks so much for joining us.